John, you did a great job getting our guest this week. Not as great a job as he did all season because he's going to win the AL Cy Young Award. That's Tarik Skubal, the ace of the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, I love this one because it's going to be a chance for us to really get to know him. I saw him, met him at the All-Star game, and very nice fellow, very insightful young man, and the best pitcher in the American League this year, no question about it. So it's going to be fun to hear what he has to say. We usually get guys that we know very well, and in this case, he has agreed to come on as Cy Young winner at this juncture, and I think that's terrific on his part, and he was great this year. So should be a good one.
I'm sure we'll ask him how he grew into a Cy Young from a single college scholarship, the culture change and the winning change with the Tigers. John, you and I will talk about the Mets' end of season, the Yankees going on to the World Series. We'll play hit and error at the end if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, we had an eventful week around here. The Mets season ended, a very successful season. The Yankee season goes on, World Series against the Dodgers. John, let's start wrap up first. Let's talk a little about the Mets. It felt like no matter what happened in the NLCS, this was going to be a successful year, getting in, winning rounds. It was a successful year, and yet the Dodgers were maybe there for the having, and the Mets just kind of like their pitching, it felt ran out of gas. There was just not enough pitching to get around that grinding lineup over and over again. You were with them throughout this run. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think there was a little bit of an opening there, a little bit of an opportunity because the Dodgers are not themselves, obviously, without Glasnow and Stone and Kershaw, May, Gonsolin, all the other pitchers that they're missing. I mean, they got basically half their pitchers or fewer than that. So, I mean, it was a little bit of an opportunity, but you're still playing a team that's incredibly deep, especially from a position standpoint, a bullpen that's outstanding, and enough starting pitching to get by. Yeah, potentially if, Minaya had a little bit more at the end, there were, I think everybody was kind of on fumes. All the pitchers basically have been on fumes. The Dodger bullpen is the one thing that has really held up pitching wise throughout these playoffs. And, they have a ton of very good relief pitchers. People question whether they had a closer. Well, Trinan is a very good closer. Kopech has got an outstanding arm. Phillips is excellent. And they have four or five other guys who are pretty good as well. So, they're a tough team. They are favored now against the Yankees. I don't quite get that. We'll get into that in a little while. But I think generally the Mets were, I mean, they went three levels beyond what almost anybody beyond but David Stearns thought that they were going to do, right? I mean, they made the playoffs. They beat Milwaukee. They beat Philly. I don't think anyone was expecting that. I know they have a big payroll, a lot of dead money. The expectations were not high. It was a team in transition. And, I know there were some tears in that clubhouse afterward, but there were a lot of hugs, and they were congratulatory hugs. They were, I think, understandably feeling pretty good about what they accomplished.
Yeah, John, I think they accomplished so many important things this year. Some of them are kind of like the esoteric. Winning a huge game in Atlanta, they needed that for who they are. They really hadn't done well in Milwaukee. The Alonso homer and beating Devin Williams, that took that out. They don't have great history with the Phillies. They took them out. Lindor became the not only he's going to finish second in the MVP, kind of the unquestioned face leader, not just in salary and name, but
Right.
in reality. And I think the most important thing that happened to them is for the first time in certainly the period from the Wilpons owning the team forward, it feels like they have the right guy running baseball operations and the right guy managing the team. They're going to have a lot of turnover for a team that went this far from this year to next year. But the important thing is the leadership group, from Steve Cohen and his money and his willingness to David Stern's abilities to Carlos Mendoza's abilities, it feels like they're in a much better position to make a strong transition roster wise than maybe any time in the last 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think they knew Stearns was going to be good, right? I mean, you wouldn't pay a guy $10 million a year or whatever he's getting. And he was certainly made the playoffs many times in Milwaukee, not easy to do. I think they knew that. Carlos Mendoza, they had a good feeling about it. I really didn't know. And he was terrific. I mean, 0-5, he kept them calm, 22-33, same thing. Didn't make any glaring errors. I quibble with the Senga usage in the playoffs. I didn't love that, but I mean, I don't know that that's the manager's decision ultimately. There were a couple other things I was wondering about. Maybe was McNeil really ready to play? I'm not so sure. But other than that, I mean, I can't really think of anything. Normally, I could come up with 10, 20 things, and certainly the moves were great from the acquisition standpoint and from the team standpoint. I think they both did great. They both had great rookie years in New York. And yeah, they got a lot to do, as you said. I mean, obviously, Pete's a big question. Soto could be a potential for the Mets, as you wrote, and they've got to rebuild the pitching staff, right? I mean, hopefully Senga will be back and good next year, and I think Peterson is, you can write him in, but we'll see about McGill, Blackburn, and you got guys Severino, Quintana, and Minaya all going to be free agents. Minaya will have to opt out to do it, but he certainly will do that. So they got to rebuild a pitching staff, figure out what to do with Pete, or pivot and try for Soto. I don't know. Are they a team? Soto and Pete, do they play together? Is this like a Semien and Seager thing? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they play it. I don't even know if they know each other very well. But obviously Soto is in an incredible position right now. Pete
Yeah.
certainly enhanced his position at least. I wouldn't say it's anything like Soto's position. Soto's probably going to get 4 times the money that Pete gets. But Pete's going to do okay, I think. Now, that home run against Milwaukee was big. I mean, these few home runs. I hit 4 home runs and an OPS over 900 in the playoffs against great pitching. I think over about 1,000 actually. So he enhanced his position. Obviously, two different positions, and it'll be interesting to see whether the Mets really try harder for Soto. Obviously, you have to offer more to get Soto, but that wouldn't shock me. I mean, I think the history of David Stearns is that he likes the youth for the big contracts, right? And Alonso is a normal age for a free agent, 29. Soto just turned 26, just turned it, or he's turning it right at game one, right? I think
Yeah.
he's game
Friday
one,
night.
right? So, that's an unusual free agent. Obviously, the Mets went big for Yamamoto. I'm not going to be surprised at all if they go big for Soto.
John, if you just look at the Mets, the key issues is they're going to lose 3 starting pitchers. They either have to re-sign some of them or get 3 starting pitchers. And one of the best players in their history, Pete Alonso, is a free agent. And yet I feel like the priority has to be Soto and Tanner Scott. Uh, because I think when you have Cohn's abilities financially, you should go after unique. Soto is going to be in that bucket with Bonds, Harper, A-Rod. There's not a lot of 25, 26-year-old great players who get out on the free agent market. And when they do, the value is, every team should bid on them. To your point, they bid at the top of the market. They bid what the Dodgers bid on Yamamoto because he was 25 and fit into all future plans. And he was first of all, he's doing the thing that gets hurt a lot, pitching, and he was a total mystery. Soto, if there were any mysteries, they're all gone now, right? He can definitely play in New York. He can definitely play in the postseason. He's going to finish fourth, probably for the AL MVP. He's done it year after year. He's just about to turn 26. And settling all debts for the Mets would have been beating the Yankees in the World Series, then taking Soto. I think they have to at least find out, can they take Soto from the Yankees? Because he's such a great culture-changing player. The other one is Scott. The Mets to me need a security blanket and a caddy for Diaz, and they need a lefty, and they could get it in one guy. And I know Scott has some concerns about strike throwing, but he's done a lot of it the last 2 years. We saw how he dominates the best of the hitters like Ohtani. You're going to have to deal with Schwarber and Harper and Matt Olson. And again, like if you put Soto and Scott onto this team and you kept Minaya, Severino, whatever, I think it could have been a champion. And so I think if they're able to repeat even good starting pitching and add the great bat and the great end game guy, I just think because unique wins, they should do that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. Just about every other team, they're going to need bullpen help. Unquestionably, that was the big question for this team in the playoffs. Was the bullpen going to get it done? And I mean, they had so many injuries with Drew Smith and Reed Foley and Brooks Raley, certainly, and some of the guys underperformed to some degree. Diaz, he wasn't certainly the guy he was in 2022. I kind of agree with you that it'd be good to have another guy that could approximate his level of pitching, his normal level of pitching. So Scott would be a good choice there. But I mean, I'm going to trust Stearns to figure out which bullpen arms. He's been pretty good about building back bullpens. They certainly were a mess halfway through the year, and they certainly did get better. And I do think that's looking at the Dodgers, and I've been out here. I'm in LA now. That's the way to go. Is big bullpen, and they tried to have big starters too, but they got almost all their guys got hurt. But big bullpen and big offense. So obviously you can't argue against Soto. It's not like Judge a couple of years ago. The Mets were coming off of 100 wins, and Judge was homegrown, and they needed a signal that he was willing to go. And there was no reason that he would be anxious to go. Whereas Soto, he's played it out to free agency. He certainly will consider the Mets and like to keep the Mets in there. Uh, I don't know what his preference is. I think by and large, he's liked New York. I don't think it's been perfect, but I do think he's generally liked it. And why not? And I mean, can the Yankees let him go though? Seriously, I mean, after
Well, the
what's gone
question
on,
is,
how can they let him go?
well,
That's
the
my
only
question.
question I would have, John, is does Hal Steinbrenner say uncle before Steve Cohen does? In other words, if Steve Cohen
Yeah,
wants something like a piece of art or or anything, is he simply can probably offer more money than the
right.
Yankees could. He could just keep going. And if it just comes down to the last dollar, I think he might win that way. Look, Juan Soto's actually still playing, so we should give some love
Yeah,
to the team he's with also before
right.
we finish our first block here. The Yankees are in the World Series. John, there's going to be a lot said and written because there's a big gulf here until the game. There's a game on Friday night. And as I think about this series, there's a lot of ways I think the Yankees have a shot to win it. They're obviously a very, very good team. I think the biggest way is they have starting pitchers.
Right.
And if all of those starting
I'm with you.
pitchers could go around the lineup at least 2 times, and Cole could do it 3 times, so that their bullpen doesn't get overexposed, I think that could be a distinct advantage, right? Yamamoto, as good as he is, he's what, on a 75 pitch limit. Flaherty looked like he was spent that second game against the Mets. Who is Walker Buehler? So is the point you made earlier, the Dodger bullpen's very good, but the Yankees should treat this like the 1990 Yankees and get into that bullpen as early and often as possible. There's probably going to be at least 1 or 2 games where they're going to have to throw a complete bullpen game. And the more and more the Yankees are seeing those guys and debilitating those guys by making them throw, I think that's advantage. There's a big weight. The Yankees have starting pitchers. The Yankees need those starting pitchers to pitch well.
Yeah, I mean, the way it works out, they might be able to get away with one bullpen game. I think going into this one, the way the pitching was going, they had to win that series against San Diego. They were going to need two bullpen games. They got away with it, winning one of them. They obviously have a very, very, very good bullpen. But I mean, the Yankees bullpen's pretty good, and the Yankees starting pitching at this moment is better. I mean, Yamamoto is not completely back. He's got a limit. I don't think he's really throwing the splitter very much, if at all. He has not been himself or what they expected him to be since he came back. And Flaherty had that one game. I think the Mets, that if you talk about a Mets mistake, I think that was a mistake coming out here a day later than they probably should have. They looked like they were kind of floating through game one, and Flaherty shut them down 2 hits, and he wasn't overwhelming in terms of the stuff. So I don't, at this point, if someone throws 5 or 6 innings, that's a good start. That was a 7 inning start. But I do think the Yankees have guys who will be able to throw that 5 or 6 innings, and that should give them advantage. So I'm not really sure why the Dodgers are favored. They had a little better record in the regular season. They got through a tougher playoffs in the National League, but they did lose 4 games to only Yankees losing 2. I kind of think now with Stanton going crazy again in the postseason, Judge looking a little bit more comfortable in the postseason, and Soto being the best hitter on this planet at this point, I kind of think the Yankees should be favored. I'm not sure why the Dodgers are favored.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty close to a toss-up, and I think it's about that. Is like for example, the Yankees and the Dodgers are the 2 teams that work pitching staffs the best. They most walks. It continued into the postseason. The Dodgers did something about it. They hit great with runners in scoring position. The Yankees played all close games, all their games, 9 games within 3 runs because they couldn't break a game open. They just,
Yeah,
were unable to get those big hits. And like to me, against this version of the Dodger pitching, where the Dodgers are trying to do it an inning at a time, They got to get a couple of those kind of hits to, like the Dodgers opened up against the Mets in the way that the Yankees never opened up against either Kansas City or Cleveland. And so, that's to
Yeah.
me, part of that is Judge has to join Stanton and Soto fully, while the chorus, Volpe had very good at bats, Rizzo had very good at bats. But Jazz Chisholm is missing in action. Austin Wells. Does 5 days off help Austin Wells? Because if you could throw a fastball above his hands, you were striking him out for the last 2 rounds. The Yankees need him. They need Chisholm to be more than an empty at bat because the Dodgers 1 through 9.
Yeah,
Like if the
that's
Yankee
true.
advantage is starting pitching, the Dodger advantage is 1 through 9, getting a lot of offense.
Right. I mean, Muncy is terrific. He gets on base all the time. Kike Hernandez is outstanding in October for whatever reason. He's a much better player in October than he is in the regular season. And Tommy Edman went crazy in the NLCS and was their cleanup hitter. I mean, the Dodgers had a great deadline to get Edman, Kopech, and Flaherty. Yankees were close on Flaherty. They were interested in Edman. It's interesting the way it worked out. The two teams obviously have good taste. They both did a good job at the deadline. Dodgers got a little bit more. I'm still considering that Dodger rotation as quite a question mark at this
So you
point.
like the Yankees?
I do. Yeah.
In what? How many games?
I'm going to say 7, only because I'm influenced by the Dodgers being favored. I feel like the Yankees are better right now. The Dodger rotation is a mess.
Yeah.
They got through the Mets. I get it. And they did win the 4 games, 37-7,
Right.
the four wins. But I mean, I think the Yankee pitchers have got more left than the Mets pitchers did.
Yeah, I'm going to take Dodgers in 7. I think it's very close. The small thing, all 3 of those Dodger outfielders can really throw. The Yankees are bad on the bases. They shouldn't try to take advantage of that. They play it more straight up. They've got to play
Yep.
cleaner than they've played all year if they're going to win a World Series. John, we talked a lot of pitching here. The guy who arguably, and it was an easy argument to make, was the best pitcher in the major leagues this year was Tarik Skubal of the Detroit Tigers, their ace. He joins us next on the show. John and I are so thrilled to have, I don't want to jinx you, Tarik, but the very, very likely American League Cy Young Award winner, the first American League pitchers in a 162-game season since 2011 to win the pitching Triple Crown since Justin Verlander did it. And congratulations on all that, on a team making the playoffs and making such a strong run, largely to some degree because of you. I wonder if you could frame this. 2 years ago, you're getting over flexor tendon surgery. You had a very good end of the season in 23. And I think people thought, oh, here comes a guy coming. Well, you didn't just come. I mean, you're at the top of the sport. Why?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, but a long answer. I think there's a lot of parts that play into that. I think the rehab process was great for me. I was able to work on some things and hammer out some stuff, and that's a credit to the coaching staff and the organization that I'm a part of. So, credit to them. My throwing program was great coming back. I think AJ instilled a ton of confidence in me coming back, and I was just able to go out and play pretty free and enjoy it and have fun and play baseball the way I play baseball and being the best version of myself out there. So I was able to build on, the rehabs kind of suck, but I felt like I was better for it. Was able to work on some pitches and pitch design stuff that sometimes you don't get the chance to do. So I was able to do that and then come back throwing. And obviously, this past season, you just build on that confidence and momentum of 2023, and then it was awesome down the stretch. All I was focused on was winning baseball games and trying to make the playoffs. And then when we were there, it was try to win today's game. And I think that's a pretty special environment to be a part of, and I think it's going to be very important for our club going forward.
Yeah, Tarik, I don't think Joel can jinx you. 18-4 with a 2.39 ERA, 228 strikeouts. Those are pretty amazing numbers, especially in this day and age with so many good hitters and lineups are difficult, top to bottom. I do want to ask you. I read up on you, and it seemed like you didn't have a ton of college scholarship offers. You did play college baseball at, I think it was Seattle, right? University of Seattle. Okay, and then you were drafted in the 9th round. Were you underestimated all along, or is this all about improvement? Did you have a feeling, maybe these people aren't really estimating me correctly, and I'm better than this?
Sure. I think the ninth round draft pick, um, I think that, shows that, right? I think there are a lot of players taken in front of me that, but that's just the nature of the game, right? And, coming out of high school, I went to, I'm from a small town, Kingman, Arizona, and I only had one Division I offer. So that's why how I ended up in Seattle. And the coaching staff I had up there was perfect for me. They demanded the best out of me and taught me how to compete at that level. And then when I got to pro ball, obviously, I had some hype of going a little bit higher. There's not very many left-handed arms that throw 95 to 96 in college. That's just what it is. I mean, I think it's more common nowadays. I feel like everybody throws hard now, but yeah. I mean, I think there was a kind of I needed to prove myself to the organization, and then once I did that, I think the organization did everything they could to take care of me and put me in position to have success after that, once I kind of proved that. So, and that was kind of after my draft year of 2018, that minor league season. I proved that I was a pretty good player and that I could compete at this level. And um, but I doubt the organization expected this out of me at that point. Selecting me in the ninth round, but credit to them. They've given me a ton of help, and that's why I'm where I'm at today.
Yeah, look, I'd like to give you some roses here, right? It's one Division I scholarship. It's a ninth round draft choice. You were not in the minor leagues considered like a high level strike thrower. You're one of the best now. You didn't have a changeup. You might have the best now. There's a lot about you. Take us through that journey of developing a repertoire that is probably the best for any starting pitcher in the sport right now.
I think it just starts with the routine and the stuff in between every fifth day. I think that that's where I build a ton of my confidence is in my preparation. So just really buying in to try and get a little bit better each and every day. I think that matters, and I've been able to do it since 2018 when I was drafted. Really work on my craft. That's the beauty of baseball. You go to the field every single day and you got something you can get better at, whether that be on the field, whether that be in the weight room, whether that be in the training room. There's a ton of you have a ton of time. You spend a ton of time at the field. So I think that I've just bought into that. And then, never being, I'm not satisfied with anything. I think that's what drives me to be one of the best players I can be. Is that, when my career is over, I don't want to leave any, stone unturned. I want to, dive into myself and, see how great I can be. And, the goal for me is, however many championships I can win in my career. That's, you're about to watch it on Friday, right? And that's, I wish I was playing in those games, and I'm going to probably watch those and tune in and, try to put myself in those, situations. But that's the goal for me. And then that's kind of what motivates me to work out, to stay in shape, to take care of my body, all that kind of stuff.
We painted the Mets as kind of a Cinderella story, and they have a $340 million payroll. Your Tigers team had an active payroll of something like 18 million. I'm quoting the Wall Street Journal here. I didn't actually figure that out, but 18 million. Tell us about this run. I mean, this was really the Cinderella story, I think, and to get through Houston and then take Cleveland to the limit. I mean, it's just an amazing job. How did that happen?
Yeah, I think, it starts with the guys in that clubhouse. I think that, one, we were young and just kind of showed up and ready to play baseball every single day. And we were probably a little naive to the moment. We didn't really know what we were just going to go out. There was no expectations for us. So we were just going to go out there and win and try to do everything we can to win. But I think that also starts, from AJ. I think AJ's the way he manages the game, the way he instills confidence in all of our youth and myself included. It's a pretty good environment to just go out there and play baseball and try to be the best version of yourself. So, but it's also, I think, the players going and doing it, it speaks a ton of who they are, the character they have, and the type of team that we had. It was a special group. I think that somehow I was a veteran and I'm 27 years old and guys are looking to me for answers. I'm like, guys, I'm only 27, but then you look at age differences and they're 22, 23, and it's, for them to be able to show up and do it on those big stages, I think that was a ton of fun, for me to watch as a teammate and, going through this off season and, it's going to get me, really excited and ready for spring training. I'm already pretty much ready to go. I'm like, when do we go? When's report date? When's all that now? That's the beauty of the game. There's only one happy team at the end of the year. So um, that's the beauty of baseball.
Tarik, just to put a finer point on it, I mean, you were sellers at the trade deadline. Jack Flaherty, who's going to start a World Series game or two in the next week or 10 days, was traded, the number 2 starter behind you. Is there a moment after that, after the trade deadline, a game, a meeting where everyone looks at each other and says, I don't think we're kind of like a seller team, even though we sold. We are good enough to do this. Is there a moment that struck everybody?
Yeah, I think, deadlines, for me in my career, my experience have always kind of sucked because we're getting rid of guys, generally good players, right? So to lose those guys, I think probably the next week or 10 games, I don't think our record was very good. And I think that kind of probably stemmed from the deadline stuff of just being sellers and kind of like, here goes another long summer. But we were also a little banged up at that time. Carp was hurt. Riley was hurt a little bit. Guys were getting a little nicked up, dinged up, all that kind of stuff. And then when we got all our team back, Casey Myers get hurt, Reese Olson gets hurt. We kind of lost our rotation like that. And then, towards August, we started getting all those guys back. And then in September, we had all those guys back and they were all healthy and we were able to just survive a little bit. And then once we got our team, full go, we were able to win a lot of baseball games. And, honestly, a lot of, other teams lost too. That helped us out, down the stretch. So that was a ton of fun though, to be able to watch that. But I remember talking to AJ about it, and there was probably going to be a team meeting. And then all of a sudden we started winning and it's like, there's nothing to meet about. Let's just keep playing baseball and show up and ready to win today's game. And I think our team did a great job of that.
And speaking of the deadline, I saw you at the All-Star game and asked you about staying in Detroit. There were some rumors, and it was written in a few places that, the Tigers are sellers. They could get a real haul. This is the best pitcher in the league. I'm assuming you still like it in Detroit because you told me that you love it. And did that affect you at all? Did you think that there was a real chance that you could get traded? It seemed like a long shot at the time, but there was a lot of speculation anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how true any of that stuff was or what, that stuff will probably all come out, within the next year or whatever, and then we'll be able to sit down and talk about it. But yeah, I didn't really, first off, it's kind of a compliment, right? As a player, teams want you, they think that you can help them win a World Series, all that kind of stuff. And it's a compliment to be in those discussions. But you just can't really let it get to you at all. I think that, as a player, my job's to go out there and perform every fifth day and put my team in a position to win. And that's all I really have control over, whether those decisions are made. I don't have say in it. I love playing here. I love being a part of the Detroit Tigers. I think this last, year that we had was pretty special. And the coaching staff, training staff, weight room, all those people are great here. So, I'm glad I wasn't, but yeah, I don't really have much control on it or say in much of that.
Tarik, the logical next question after you don't get traded is, you mentioned you love the Tigers and being there. Do you imagine that there's potential to do something long term? You're I believe Scott Boras is your agent. It's not a zero that he does extensions, but usually a player as good as you gets out into the marketplace and lets the market dictate it. You're a couple of years away from that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, I love playing here. That's what I'll say. I love playing here. Like I said, the coaches, the teammate, the guys that we got in the clubhouse, it's a ton of fun. The fan base, they've always been great to me, and my family. As far as extension stuff, that's why I have an agent. I'll let him handle all that stuff. And however the front office goes about it, I'll be able to make a decision, with the most information I got. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about it. I love playing here, and yeah, that's kind of how I'll handle that.
We got as you mentioned, we have the World Series coming up at the end of this week. So sorry to ask you about that. You said you probably watch it. You think you will watch it? Do you root for the American League team? I know Aaron Judge at the Little League Classic said you were the best pitcher in baseball. Maybe you root for him. I don't know. What do you, as you're watching the game, are you rooting? You have a rooting interest, or are you just watching to enjoy it and learn something?
Yeah, I'll watch every game. as far as me, who I want to win, I don't really care who wins. I want Jack Flaherty to pitch really well in the games he starts. He was a great teammate. Still stay in touch, the rest of the season, and kind of all that stuff. But I'll be pulling for him for every start that he has. He had a really dominant start in the game one, or I think of the CS, really dominant. Put his team in the driver's seat for the rest of the series. So hopefully he keeps that going. And then, but as far as I just want to watch good baseball, I think that the back and forth. I think the ALCS, that series was electric. I thought, at any point a big swing could happen, and they started happening, right? Like you see that game in Cleveland. I think it was game 4 or whatever it was. I mean, listen, that game was incredible. I just want to watch good baseball, and I think the stars will be out in this series, so that's going to be a ton of fun to watch. You talk about the best baseball players in the game. You have the MVP of the American League and the MVP of the National League going at it on the biggest stage. So I think that that's going to be a ton of fun to watch.
You sound obviously like someone who you got in this year. You had not really played on good teams until this year. Why do you think the organization has turned a corner, culture, talent-wise, where this will be the norm now for the Tigers? And maybe we're talking to you next year and you're playing in this.
Yeah, I think I think it starts with, AJ and kind of, and it trickles down to all the guys. I think that the way he's able to lead our team and put all of our guys in a lot of positions that have success. I think that, I feel like we play a bunch of team games. It's not just 9 guys rolling out there. It's like, we use all 13 guys off the bench, and we're using a ton of, different arms, whether, however we do it, and we just want to win. So I think that that's going to be the most important part going into next season, is just understanding that winning is all that matters. Selfishly, individual stats, they don't matter a ton. It's a team game, and we need the record to reflect that. So I think that's going to be the most important part. But as far as our organization going forward, we're young, and we've shown that we can do it. And I think that's all the confidence that our team needs, and all the motivation that our team needs to have a great offseason. I think the youth in our organization, I think me personally, nothing motivates me more than losing that game 5, and I'll be able to use that as fuel, going forward, and getting me through an off season of, when days you don't really want to work out, or you don't want to do this or do that. Just think back to that feeling of game 5, walking off the mound. I think that's all the motivation I'll need to be the best version of myself next year.
Well, you were pretty good in the postseason. I think your ERA was about the same as it was in the regular season, about 2.3. So it's good that you're such a perfectionist. Maybe that is part of the reason you've been so successful to this point. Joe mentioned the Cy Young earlier, so I thought I should ask. I mean, I think it's kind of a given that somebody who has the Triple Crown of pitching is going to win the Cy Young. What are your thoughts? Do you have room on the mantelpiece for the Cy Young trophy?
Yeah, I got some room back there. I'll make it. Yeah, that'll be pretty special. If it does happen, or I don't really like to count things before count whatever that saying is. But we'll see. I don't really know when it's announced either. I don't know the date or anything like. I think it's after the World Series. I don't know, but it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting regardless. However it draws out, it was a great season, and but yeah, I don't. If it happens, it'll definitely be going up right behind me. I think that'll be pretty special, to have for the rest of my career.
Just bring this full circle as a final question, Tarik. We mentioned all that you overcame. I believe you had Tommy John surgery as an amateur. You had the flexor tendon surgery. Almost every pitching guest that John and I have on, we ask about the epidemic of pitching injuries and if anything can be done about it to, protect the great pitchers in the world like you in a better way. Is there no way, because if you throw hard, this is just part of the job? Or do you think there's any way to better prepare, change the ball, change something about the game where we can protect the Tarik Skubals moving forward better?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question. First off, I think injuries are a part of the game, and arm injuries. It just so happens the nature of the beast is it demands a lot of you to throw a baseball. It's not natural. That's kind of been proven. So I think arm injuries are always going to be a part of the game. I don't think they're going to be, you can maybe prevent them, but I think they just happen, right? I think, as the game demands more of of me, as the velocity starts to spike up and the innings start to spike up. I think, for me, my preparation needs to be even better, to put myself in a position where my body's recovered and I feel great every fifth or sixth day. So, and that's something that I've been able to, hammer out with, our training staff and the stuff I do, with our strength and conditioning coaches. So, I think that needs to match the demand of what you're, asking yourself to do every fifth day. But I don't know if we'll ever be able to prevent them, as far as, guys' routines and what they're doing behind the scenes. I'm only going to speak about myself. I'm trying to take care of my body and put it, to where I feel good every fifth day. And I was able to do that, the last season and a half. I've really felt good every single fifth day. So, yeah, I think, maybe routines or what guys are doing in between, can get a little bit better, but I don't know if you'll ever be able to prevent them. I think it just so happens that they've all happened in such a short time, but yeah, that's such a tough question. I mean, I think if you gave guys maybe some sticky stuff and it could take away or make the balls a little bit tackier, it could take away the amount of pressure that guys are putting on the baseballs. But then, like, what does that do to the ball when it comes out of the hand? And, how does that impact offense? And does it make it to where, baseball is just a 2-0 game every single day? I don't know if fans really want to watch pitching duels every single night. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't really have an answer, for it. But yeah, I think, for me personally, what I expect myself to do every fifth day, I better prepare, the 4 days in between to be able to take them out and do that.
Well, I hope that everyone who listens fully got the idea of your journey, Tarik. Again, one Division I scholarship offer, a 9th-round draft pick, Tommy John surgery, flexor tendon surgery, and this year you rose to the top of your sport, helped drag the Tigers from sellers in July to the playoffs. It is a terrific, remarkable story for yourself and your team. Congratulations on it. It is going to end up in an AL Cy Young award. So thank you so much for joining us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. This was a ton of fun.
Thanks, Tarik. Really appreciate it.
Jon and I, of course, thank Tarik Skubal for joining us on the show. Jon, hit or error going into the World Series?
I'm going to be positive. I'm out in LA. It's sunny and beautiful. We got the World Series that people were looking for. Everybody's excited. I guess the tickets are averaging like $1,400 already. My hit is Francisco Lindor. What a great year that he had. He's not going to win the MVP, but among mere mortals, he was the best player in the league. I don't care what anyone says, picking on his batting average or whatever. Who cares about batting average at this point? The guy was fantastic. Incredible power for his size. Incredible defender. Ridiculous that he is not a Gold Glove finalist. Makes no sense. He is a Roberto Clemente finalist, and I think that means more to him as Puerto Rican than being a Gold Glove finalist. And maybe he will actually win that award. But no shame in being second to Ohtani as the MVP, which is what we expect.
Yeah, Jon, that's an excellent hit there. You mentioned that everyone's looking forward to this World Series. Is it me? I like, there's so many people are saying this is what's wrong with the sport. It's what the Yankees and the Dodgers. They're acting like it's like 1941 to 1956 here, which, by the way, everyone always calls like when the great days. This was the glory era of baseball. In those 16 years, the Yankees and Dodgers played 7 times in the World Series. People thought it was great. The Yankees and Dodgers are like clockwork now. Every 43 years, they play in the playoff. They play in the World Series. People are like, oh, this is why we need a salary cap and other nonsense. Like, the reality is, by the way, I just want to throw this out there. Since 2009, there have been 10. Then when the Yankees last won, there have been 10 different teams that have won the World Series. That is the same amount of teams that have won the Super Bowl, and it's the same amount of teams that won the NBA final. 10 in every sport in those 14 years. Okay? Yeah. So those are with salary caps, and this one isn't. Hey, if you want salary cap, get a salary cap. I guess you want owners to know how much money they're going to spend. Maybe salary cap would be fairer to some of the good players who get squeezed lower because the money goes to the best players. Maybe some of the younger players. I'll give you a reason for a salary cap. None of them are about competitive balance. Competitive balance is about competence and its brother, incompetence. You give the White Sox and the Angels all the money in the world, they'll still wind up in fourth place. So to me, it's okay. Nobody complained 4 years in a row when we saw LeBron versus Steph. Nobody should complain the first year in a row when we see Ohtani versus Judge. That's going to be great.
I mean,
Like
people
if
are
you have some
excited. Come
big
on.
city
Yeah.
phobia, hatred, that's fine. Hollywood versus Broadway for the first time in 43 years, that's fine. It's going to be good. Go ahead and watch it.
I mean, come on, the ratings are going to be through the roof.
Right.
Fox is loving this. The fans are. The tickets for the Yankees, I saw the average is $1,500 for a ticket at Yankee Stadium, and not all the seats are great, by the way.
Me and you are going to get in for free. Think about that.
We have to work though.
Yes, so that's a
We have a
trade-off.
little work. We have a little work, but it's still something to look forward to. I mean, Judge, Soto, Stanton, Ohtani, Betts, Cole. A lot of starting Freeman. Presumably, he'll be feeling a little bit better. He was certainly diminished in the Mets series. Didn't play a couple of games, but a lot of big stars. I do think the small market teams do still have a chance. I mean, you have to play it great, right? It is a little bit odd how they usually do not make it through the postseason, though, right? Because isn't it kind of a crapshoot? Other than
Yeah,
maybe
but John,
slightly.
like again, not that I wrote about it, I did, nypost.com tomorrow if you'd like, but I was looking, like if you think about since the Yankees last won, Kansas City won for the first time since
Right.
1985. Texas and Washington won for the first time ever. Atlanta won for the first time since 1995. You talk about the big markets. Philadelphia's been around since 1882. They've won 2 championships. The two Chicago teams combined have won 2 championships since 1917. Like this idea that somehow the big markets are dominating championships, it's easy gut level stupidity for people who always want to find grievance or hate big cities. But it's
Right.
just not true. Now, not true doesn't really mean much in our country anymore, but it's just not true.
Right. No, I think that's fair. I mean, certainly an advantage to have the $300 million players, and there are many of them in the series, but it's certainly not a given that you're going to go far in these playoffs. I know it's not a complete crapshoot, but it's pretty close to a crapshoot. If you look at the 7-game series in the history, many times that the team that was considered the weaker team has won, and it's just a little weird that we've had very few small market teams really break through and win the World Series. The Marlins, not a small market, but small revenue, they've broken through. The Royals, as you mentioned, they broke through. But I mean, all those years that Oakland was really good, they didn't quite make it. I mean, obviously they did it in the years where they were spending back in the days of Reggie and those great teams then, and then certainly in the late '80s with Canseco and McGuire. But since they became a small revenue team and now they're going out of Oakland, they haven't been able to win. Despite making mostly great moves, it has seemed difficult, but it's not impossible.
That's
And
about ownership.
if
That's
you're in,
about
you've got a
ownership.
shot. Well, that Oakland situation,
Yeah, that's
that
Tampa
that's
Bay's
ugly.
gotten to the World Series a couple of times, once since the last time the Yankees were. I mean,
Yeah,
Kansas City's been there twice since the Yankees were there last, so and now the Yankees are back.
it
It's
can
just a
be
way of
done. It can
saying,
be done. Yeah,
like I understand there's a easy narrative of, oh, the Dodgers got Ohtani, the Yankees got Soto, of course, but like it's not, of course, because the Dodgers are seeking their first championship in a 162 game season since 1988. They
right.
don't
I
win
counted
every year.
2020.
So
I counted
2020. So they've won once since
right.
1988. The
I
Mets
know.
are in New York. Haven't won since 1986. This is
Yeah,
such an easy narrative.
I
It
know.
just happens not to be true. I'll
Well, the
tell you
Dodgers did win four. They have gotten to the World Series 4 out of the
series.
last 8 years. That's pretty good. So I don't get the criticism for Dave Roberts myself. I get the criticism for Boone. I like Boone, but I get it. This is his first World Series. Roberts, this is 4 out of 8 for him. That's
Yeah.
that's a lot to go through
Yes.
that gauntlet and get there 4 out of 8 times. And he might have won in 2017 if Houston wasn't banging the drum or whatever the heck they were doing.
No. Let me bang the drum for our producer, Tommy Hogan. Great transition, Joel. You're welcome. Tommy does such a great job helping us with the show every week. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, the New York Post Sports YouTube page to give this a view. John, is that your hotel room they'll see in
Yeah.
LA?
Yes.
All
That's
right.
my
I'm joining you tomorrow, not in your hotel room, but in Los Angeles. I'm flying cross country. It's going to be
Nice.
hopefully a great World Series, and we'll talk all about it if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.